Conversations on Dance is generously supported by Yumiko. The Yumiko Heather Collection is now available. The Heather Collection is made from a high-performance fabric that features a settled flecked color effect. This ready-to-wear collection offers 9 styles of leotards and 4 color options, including gray, pink, blue, and purple. If you haven't yet seen this newest collection, you have to click around yumiko.com to see these gorgeous looks for yourself. Stay up to date on everything Yumiko by following them on Instagram at Yumiko and at Yumiko World. This episode is also brought to you by the Lake Tahoe Dance Festival, bringing together artists from around the world to perform in one of the most beautiful places in the world, Lake Tahoe, California, July 24th through 27th. This summer's Lake Tahoe Dance Festival features works by Agnes DeMille, Constantine Becker, Jacopo Godani, Catherine Duke, and Tracy Finch. Performance highlights include new and rarely seen works, set against the breathtaking backdrop of Lake Tahoe and the Sierra Nevada mountains. Follow them on Instagram at Lake Tahoe Dance Collective and check out their hashtag Putting on the Ritz giveaway for a chance to win tickets to the opening night gala, plus a 3-night stay at the Ritz-Carlton Lake Tahoe. Visit LakeTahoeDanceCollective.org to plan your trip to the 2019 Lake Tahoe Dance Festival today. This episode of Conversations on Dance is sponsored by the Kennedy Center. I'm Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance.
Today's episode was recorded live at the Kennedy Center on Saturday, June 1st, 2019, before the matinee performance of Miami City Ballet as a part of Ballet Across America. We were joined by Virginia Johnson, the artistic director of Dance Theater of Harlem, who had been performing earlier in the week at the Kennedy Center, Lourdes Lopez, artistic director of Miami City Ballet, and celebrated choreographer Pam Tanowitz. This panel was put together to discuss women leading the way in ballet. Be sure to explore all the happenings at the Kennedy Center by visiting kennedy-center.org.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name is Art Prirampran. I'm the manager of dance programming here at the Kennedy Center, and you are joining us here during Ballet Across America Week, which is a Kennedy Center program that explores the breadth and depth of American ballet. And this is the 5th time we've done Ballet Across America, and we bring a variety of companies throughout the week to show all the different sides of American ballet. This year, when we approached curating Ballet Across America, we were really inspired by the leadership of women in ballet, and through that lens also came to look at Virginia Johnson of Dance Theater of Harlem and Lourdes Lopez of Miami City Ballet, and also as an excuse to bring their companies here, which we've been wanting to do for quite a while and have them return to the Kennedy Center. And as some of you have seen throughout the week, and as you'll also see this afternoon, it's been really exciting to have both companies here. And today we have a panel discussion about female leadership in ballet, but also just to hear what's going on with each of these remarkable artists. Last night, we had the premiere of a work that we commissioned for both companies from the choreographer Pam Tanowitz, who's also here with us today. And so we'll get to hear from all of these really remarkable artists. And from the podcast Conversations on Dance, who we've been working with all season here at the Kennedy Center to record several live podcasts and also some backstage interviews as well. So please go to conversationsondancepod.com or wherever you listen to podcasts to both find podcasts that we've done and hear this podcast, which will be released next week, and make sure to share it with your friends. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Rebecca and Michael, who are the hosts of Conversation on Dance, and they'll take us through this really interesting conversation we have. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Art. Thank you. And thanks to all of you for coming out this afternoon. We really appreciate it. I know all of us are so excited to be here as part of Ballet Across America. My name is Michael Breeden.
And I'm Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And we're the hosts of Conversations on Dance.
So as Art said, we're very happy to have all three of you lovely ladies here with us today. We're here with Virginia Johnson of Dance Theater of Harlem, Lourdes Lopez of Miami City Ballet, and Pam Tanowitz, celebrated choreographer. So this is also very special for us because Michael and I danced with Miami City Ballet for over a decade, many years under Lourdes. So it's fun to be here on this weekend with Miami City Ballet performing.
Before we get started, we wanted to let you guys know that we will be opening the floor to questions from you towards the end of the interview. So if anything sparks your imagination, just keep that question in mind and we'll get to it.
All right, so before we get into the meat of our conversation today, we want to get to know all of you a little bit better. So Lourdes and Virginia, can you tell us a little bit about when you joined as an artistic director of your companies and how long you've been in that post? Virginia, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Rebecca. So I have been artistic director of Dance Theater of Harlem since 2010. I was a dancer with Dance Theater of Harlem from its founding in 1969, and I danced with the company for 28 years. I finally retired and went off and did some other things. And in 2010, Arthur Mitchell called me and said that he was stepping down and he wanted me to take his place. Which was quite a stunning
what was that like
statement.
for you?
Yeah. Well, this is not a job I ever aspired to, but this was the person who had given me the life I had dreamed of, and it was definitely time for me to do my paying back.
Yeah.
So I took on the assignment.
Wonderful. Lourdes, how about you?
It's nice to see you both.
It's so fun.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Yeah.
I took over Miami City Ballet in 2012. I also had no aspirations or goals to be an artistic director, but I got a call from the board chair of Miami City Ballet at the time to come down, and it felt like an organic move for me. I was a principal with New York City Ballet. And obviously it's our founder, Edward Villela, was a star with that company, and it's the same kind of roots that we have, legacy that we share. And I was raised in Miami, born in Cuba, raised in Miami, so it just felt like an organic move, even though it wasn't anything that I was working towards or thinking about. After I stepped down, and I don't like to say that I retired, I like to say that I got tired. I'm still trying to figure out when I retire. But I danced with New York City Ballet for 24 years, and I did a whole slew of things after my career that I think really informed me and educated me and kind of gave me the experience of what I needed once I took on the role of artistic director, because it's not just the fact that you're on stage as a dancer, it's a lot more than that, a lot more of there are different skills that you need, and I'm so glad that I was open to all the various things that I did after stepping down. And so I guess I'm in my 8th season now.
Wow. So, Pam, can you tell us a little bit about when you first became interested in choreography and how some of your first commissions came about?
I thought you guys were introducing me. I started choreographing in college. I went to Ohio State University, and in my junior year, I started choreographing. And I actually had no plan. I had no plans. I didn't know what a career in dance would be. It's a freelance choreographer in New York. I knew I was going to move back to New York. I'm from New York. So I just made stuff, really. There's no plan. No one teaches you how to do that.
Right, yeah.
I mean, sort of listening to you guys, there's no skill. You plan on making dances, but there's a bunch of other skills you need to forge a career that nobody teaches you. You just have to do it and make mistakes, and I still make mistakes. So
yeah, I think that's something that sets choreography apart in terms of as an art form. Dancers, where we have a teacher in the front of the room from day one informing us what to do, what not to do. But as a choreographer, you have to the learning curve is on your own, right? A little bit?
I think so. I mean, I think for me, I really, I always had a day job, so I was never trying to make money. But what that afforded me was, so I made money somewhere else, so I really just worked on my craft. I really was in the studio all the time. And, it was a slower pace for me. Other people do everything at once, or I couldn't really do that. So.
Was it hard for you to find dancers to work with?
Well, when I started, it was just my friends from college, and there was when you don't get any money, you don't pay any money. When there's no money involved, it seems okay at first, but then as you go, it's not.
Right, absolutely. So Virginia and Lourdes, you said that neither of you had aspirations to have these roles as artistic directors. So when you were asked, what thought process did you go through, and what made you eager to accept it and decide, this really is going to be the next step for me and I'm ready to take on this challenge?
So I think the thing, as Lourdes said, when I stopped dancing, I did a lot of different things. Among them was Founding Point magazine, which is a publication that was designed for the young dancer to understand what the profession was like. And I have to say, when I stopped dancing, I had intended to turn my back on ballet, to walk away from this crazy world and never have anything to do with it again, because I was done with it. It was very all-consuming. I had a wonderful career. But that was enough.
Right.
And I was going to have a regular life, and I was going to be a real person.
And then?
And so I went back to college because I was still working on my undergraduate degree, and I was studying journalism, and I really wanted to continue to communicate,
right,
because I feel like that's what dance does. And I was going to do it. I was going to be a journalist. And it was in the midst of that process of putting together Point magazine and learning what I needed to do to make a magazine and learning what people needed to know about inside the profession that they didn't have access to, that I fell back in love.
Interesting.
And it was really the very strangest thing, because I came to appreciate what ballet is. I came to appreciate the people who are in it and the process by which it comes together. And of course, it's the dancers on the stage, but it's the people in the office, it's the people, it's the board, it's the audience, it's the presenters. There's this whole universe of people who believe passionately in this art form and want to make sure that it moves forward. And I hadn't found that kind of passion in the real world. And so when Arthur Mitchell said, I want you to come here, I was like, oh, I think I have an idea about what that could be now.
Right.
And I hadn't had it before.
Right.
Very interesting. Lourdes?
When I stopped dancing, I got an opportunity to be a cultural arts correspondent for WNBC in New York, and I did that for 2 years, really interviewing artists, filming, writing my own stories, looking for my own stories. And it was wonderful, because there I was retired after 24 years. I had a salary, I had benefits, I had an office, a little cubicle, I had a brand new community. And I did it for 2 years, and I was really, really unhappy. I would walk through the doors of the Rockefeller Center up on the 50th floor, and it was like my DNA had changed. I was no longer Lourdes, and it wasn't about not dancing on the stage. It had nothing to do with that. It was about not being around this art form that I have loved from the age of 5. I needed to be in it. I didn't need to be dancing on the stage, but I somehow needed to be around the people, around the dancers, around the community. I needed to see it. And so I took a job as a ballet teacher at Ballet Academy East, teaching adult classes late at night. After I finished with WNBC, I'd go and teach a 7 o'clock class, and all of a sudden I was happy. And so that was and I think dancers, I really do believe that dancers have an innate understanding of what brings them happiness and what brings them joy. And I realized I somehow had to be involved with dance somehow, and I just basically said yes to everything that came along. And so I started teaching, became a senior faculty member for Ballet Academy East. I think I taught there for about 4 or 5 years. Barbara Horgan, who's the executor of the George Balanchine Trust, really gave me the greatest gift, I think, that I've ever received, in that she approached me about being the executive director of the George Balanchine Foundation. And so all of a sudden I was put on the administrative side, learning about budgets, governance, proposals, deadlines, projects that had to be done. How do you raise money, development, what's your bottom line? And she threw me in there, really very similar to Balanchine or any teacher, just shove you out there and you either sink or swim. And I did that for 4 years, and I owe her just a debt of gratitude, because she taught me, she put me in a situation where I needed to learn everything I had to learn if I wanted to had a ballet company, which I didn't want to do. Right? I didn't want to do. And then Christopher Wheeldon, the choreographer, we were very good friends. We're still very good friends. And he's had this crazy idea. Sorry, Pam, but it is a crazy idea to start a ballet company from scratch in the United States. I just want to tell you that. So he said, I really want my own company. And we started the Morphosis, which is a small modern contemporary dance company in New York, very small pickup artist. And then that was the other kind of, thrown in again in a situation where I had to kind of figure it out and understand. So I don't know if I've answered your question. The point is that there were no skill sets. I didn't go someplace. It was just saying yes to everything that had to do with dance. For me, it was, is it about dance? I'm there.
Right.
I'll do it.
Right.
And it's brought me to really this unbelievable place where I think even I'm more fulfilled now as an artistic director than I was as a dancer, I have to say.
So Pam, as Lourdes mentioned, you are the founder of your dance company, Pam Tanowitz Dance. So was that something you're talking about? You were in college, you were just making things. Was that always your view for your future to get to this point and make a career out of choreography?
No, and also I don't really, it's not a dance company really. I mean, it is when I need it to be, but it's really a project-based company. So we don't have an office. Well, we're actually getting an office, but
Watch out.
but it's really project-based. So it's based on what work we have. So I think that these sort of older models of a dance company for modern, I think it's very different for ballet companies. They don't really exist, and they don't. I mean, I can think of Mark Morris. I can't think of anything else. Paul Taylor, but Graham. But that's really it. I think as far as companies, like full-time companies. I think now I'm in the middle of trying to figure out a new model of how to go forward as a project-based company and still be able to tour. It's a real they work against each other,
Right.
And it's been hard. It's been a quick learning curve on how to, we toured Goldberg Variations and 4 quartets, and we were, we had to get ready. We had to learn quickly how to do all these things.
Sure, yeah.
Because we didn't have systems in place. So it's hard. It's a harder, because I actually think of myself as an individual artist. I go into the studio and I make stuff. That's what I care about, and that's where I feel the least unhappy, talking about how dancers know how to make themselves happy. That's where I feel the least unhappy, in the dance studio. So that's how I know it's right for me.
Yeah.
So Lourdes, you said that maybe building a dance company from scratch is the hardest thing to do, but taking over the helm of a company that it has an identity like Dance Theater of Harlem and Miami City Ballet, I think if you said either of those companies, when you took over, people certainly had a distinct idea of their identities, that what those companies represent to people who love the arts. So what were some of the challenges in honoring that legacy for both of you, and yet still bringing forward the company with your ideas?
It was very easy for me to honor the legacy of Miami City Ballet. As I said, our founder was Edward Villela, this extraordinary, really one of the first or second or major male dancers in the United States, if not the world. I mean, a real iconic figure in the dance world. So, and we both share the Balanchine roots and blood. I was picked to join New York City Ballet by Mr. Balanchine himself. I trained under him for about 13 years. Continued dancing all of his ballets along with Jerome Robbins. So it's kind of the DNA. We share the same DNA, and it's a legacy, and it's an aesthetic and a style that I very much believe in. Though I appreciate other styles, and I can watch them. It's not that it's good or bad. It's just different. For me, with Miami City Ballet, it was really about the word is updating it a little bit, where I felt that there were these new choreographers. I know you had already done a piece by Ratmansky and Liam Scarlett, but Justin Peck and more works by Christopher Wheeldon, and really expanding the repertory that we had. Because I'm a firm believer that the broader and more diverse rep that you have, that you can bring to your dancers, the better your dancers are going to be. Number one, they just get so excited when there's new work. They're thrilled when they have a living choreographer in front of them, right? That they're feeding off of. It makes them work harder. It makes them happy. It expands their artistic growth. And I remember at City Ballet when Peter Martins did the American Music Festival. And artistically, I was already a principal, and the fact that I was working with 4 different choreographers during one season, by the end of that season, I myself could not believe how much better, not technically, but artistically, how much more available I was as a dancer on the stage. And so that was kind of my idea for when I came in, and they said, well, what are you going to do with it? And I would say, well, I want to take it to its next level. And for me, that was the next level.
Right. How about for you, Virginia?
So for me, it was a very different situation. When I came back in 2010, there was no professional company. Dance Theater of Harlem had put the touring company on hiatus in 2004 for financial reasons. And one of the things that Arthur Mitchell said to me was my job was to bring back the company. And that was, Dance Theater of Harlem had a huge reputation and was well known around the world and much loved. And the fact that it was not touring anymore was a very, very sad and difficult situation. But we had to figure out how to build a company again in a way that we could sustain this time. When the company folded in 2004, there were 53 dancers. When I came back, we spent 2 years stabilizing the organization, working on our development department, really working on how we were doing things, administration, how we were making the organization strong enough to withstand the stress of having a touring company. And we had much support from the foundations. We had some wonderful consultants, and we did all kinds of studies, and we figured out, well, what's the right size for a touring company in 2012, which was the date that we had decided on. Post-2008 economy, just a real understanding that we have an important message. It needs to play in big cities and small. So how can we make this happen? We crunched numbers, and we came up with the number 18. And so Dance Theater of Harlem relaunched as an 18-member company, which was very exciting, but it meant that the majority of the repertoire that Dance Theater of Harlem was famous for was out of our reach.
Sure.
During the 2 years before we relaunched the company, we did a series of workshops called Harlem Dance Works 2.0, in which we invited different choreographers to come in and do studies for potential works. And we used pickup dancers. We had dancers from all kinds of places who were available to us, just to have a 2 or 3 week period in which somebody would incubate a little bit of a work, and we'd see, this is something interesting, this is something that could fit Dance Theater of Harlem, or, oh no, that's not going to work. So that was a very useful time period. But we had to figure out from scratch what Dance Theater of Harlem would look like again, because we didn't have access to anything from the past. And it's been, in these 7 years that we've had the company, a constant rejiggering of the idea of what Dance Theater of Harlem is. The work that we performed here at Kennedy Center last night, Dougla, was part of the original company's repertoire. And it's a magnificent work, full of spectacle, full of wonderful costumes. It has a cast of 24. And when we perform it in select cities, we augment the company with dancers from Collage Dance Collective, which is an offshoot of Dance Theater of Harlem. It was founded by a former Dance Theater of Harlem company member, Kevin Thomas. So that fulfills that idea, you're going to have spectacle. But the majority of our works are much smaller because we have a smaller touring company that travels with our costumes and whatever scenery underneath the plane when we fly from place to place.
Sure.
Yeah. So Pam, what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome in terms of, we know how hard it can be to launch a career in choreography. So what was like the biggest challenge that you had to overcome in order to create the career that you have today as a very prolific choreographer in the field?
Well, I think I just kept making stuff. I think I really had to block out the noise of stuff and really concentrate on the work because, and I think the first 15 years of my career where nobody really paid that much attention to me actually was a gift because I didn't have to worry. I mean, it was hard, don't get me wrong, but also it gave me a chance to practice and make stuff and make mistakes and not have to worry about, you know, I had 20 people in the audience or 9 people in the audience or whatever, you know, and I just, there's something about being naive that is actually really great. Like I just did stuff, I didn't think about stuff, you know, I didn't think about it. Like now I overthink things. So I think that there was a period of time that was really helpful. I mean, the challenge are like everything else, like everything's hard, you know.
Was there a specific moment that you were like, okay, this is happening, like I feel like those 15 years are past me and I'm really starting to launch into my career?
I don't think about my career like that though. That's what I'm trying to, like I just look at the next dance. So I don't, it's hard, I don't look at it like I want to achieve this by this because it's not linear that way. And I think everything's important. So I think a show at the Barbican is just as important as me going to Cleveland and working with the community there to put up a show in a week. Like I think that, and a lot of people have helped me through my whole career, and I teach, and I think it's important to give back. You know, I try to do as much as that. You know, now people, I used to ask favors, and now people ask me, and I try to say yes as much as possible. So, did I answer your question? Yes. I don't know if I feel like
So in recent years, the conversation about the lack of representation of women as choreographers in the repertoire of major companies in America has intensified. Do you guys think that this conversation has been productive and that we've been able to move forward into a place where women are having stronger voices or having their voices heard as choreographers in the ballet world?
I think that, yes, we're in a moment where it is very much all that people are talking about, which is wonderful. Sorry that they didn't talk about it sooner. Certainly there were female choreographers who were part of the ballet world before now, and I think that we are forgetting that it's not a new thing.
Right.
But it's certainly something that I think is of value and of importance, that we want to understand what the contribution of a different perspective can make to this art form.
Yes, it's wonderful that we're having this conversation now, but the question that I ask myself is, why did it take so long? Why aren't there more women? So let me give you a perfect example. When I came down to take over Miami City Ballet, I had to program them. I was also head of the Miami City Ballet School and putting together their summer program. And I gave, in these auditions, I gave no male scholarships out for the men. Not a single, sorry, Michael. Because I just felt that it wasn't necessarily need-based, I just felt in respect to the talent, it wasn't there. And no one showed up. No single, young male dancer enrolled at Miami City Ballet School for that summer. And the administrator at the time said to me, it's because you haven't given out scholarships. And all of a sudden, when I started doing the research, I realized that to get more men into ballet, what many directors and many school directors did is that they offered them full scholarships, basically a free ride. So you get your tuition, you get a stipend, you get flown, you get this, you get housing, everything to increase the male population, which was badly needed. And so now when you go to any school, for the most part in the United States, schools as well, there's there's a nice number of male students, of men, young boys interested in ballet. So I'm thinking, what do we have to do, right? To kind of set the stage for these young women while they're in the company or while they're in the school. What tools, what process, what projects, what kind of gatherings, what kind of information, what kind of education, what can we do to kind of get the reaction that we got, that now we have all these men dancing for young female, dancers that are interested in choreographing.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think there's one of the things that's really important that we try to do at DTH also is to plant the seed of possibility in the minds of young students. I think that lots of young kids are in the ballet class and they see in front of them the teacher who may be male or female, but usually the person that teaches them the steps, that's choreographing for them is a male, just because that's just what's happened. And so what we're trying to do is make sure when we have female choreographers who are working with the company to have them engage with the students in the school so that they have a sense that, oh, this is something I can do too. And encouraging them to make dances themselves. It doesn't happen so much in ballet that you get a young ballet student to think about making a dance. The ones who are driven towards choreography will do that automatically. But the ones who are just taking class and loving it, giving them the chance or challenging them the opportunity, will try it. See what happens. You might actually love it. And so planting that seed so they think, I could do this. I have something in me that could take that next step.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm not a ballet choreographer, and I'm not in the ballet world, so I'm an outsider, so take this with a grain of salt, right? But from my point of view, I agree with everything you're saying, and sort of going off what you're saying, Virginia, about, I think that there's a way that the ballet world cultivates men to choreograph and not women. And then and I've said this before in other interviews, that then all of a sudden everyone wakes up and says, we want a female ballet choreographer. And then they hire, and then they get a chance, and they're not ready. And then, and then they don't get another chance. And the men get more chances.
Right.
Like if they make a okay ballet, they give them another one to work it out. And that's fun. That's great. But I feel like it's charged when a female gets that chance, and if they don't totally succeed, whatever that means, then they won't hire another one for 10 years or something, and they don't cultivate it the way they have cultivated, a Christopher Wilden or a Justin Peck, the way that and the resources and the time, and I think that's, and I don't know, and I think it's part of, you can speak to this more, part of the culture and the heritage and the history and
Yeah, I agree with Pam partially. Specifically for ballet, it's endemic. Women dance more. Period. End of story. So whether it's American Ballet Theater, New York City Ballet, or Miami City Ballet, for the most part, women are on stage. If you have 4 ballets that evening, generally speaking, women are in 3 of those ballets, while the men are in 1. Right? No, Michael, right. So Giselle happens, the guys leave after first act, the women stay for second. So the men, I think, have had more time, because I was there during Justin and I was there doing Chris Wheeldon, and they weren't in the theater as often as the female dancers. It's just, it's part of the, unfortunately, I think, it's not the only reason. And so how do we change that around? How do we give them more time? Yeah. I also think that, unfortunately, the point shoe, I hate to say it, plays a big part, because you have to be in that classroom every day because of the point shoe work. Mm-hmm. It is that specific. It takes that much out of you, where men have a little bit. So, how do we create the time if a female is interested, that we as artistic directors say, okay, I will take you out of 3 ballets to give you time, and I'll give you maybe that's the way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
But
think, though,
agree.
also, excellent points, excellent points. But I think the other thing that's part of our world that is a hindrance is that we don't have any, we don't have enough workshops, we don't have enough laboratories. Pam, you said you just went into the studio and
Right.
worked. You just, because you were
It was a
interested
different
in that.
track. It's a different track.
It's a different.
Yeah.
So what happens with ballet companies, and certainly something that I've experienced, is you have to have a work that you invest in, that you're going to have move forward, and you don't. When we had Harlem Dance Works, it was a great luxury because we could explore. We don't create time in our very tightly packed days for exploration at all. You just have to produce. And so how does an artist develop if they don't have that time to go?
It's hard. It's really hard. I mean, even when I'm teaching my students at Rutgers University, it's a very there's deadlines, there's shows, and I actually said to them, I will teach this class. There is no product. They are not showing anything. It's not for a show. And every time I come, we're doing something different. And some things carried over and some things didn't, but it was all about process. And that's the only thing I want to teach right now. And they said, okay. But it's hard on every level of what you're saying, because there's deadlines, there's time is money,
There are grants,
money's time, I mean, all that stuff. But I think that there has to be a way to say, we want to engage with female, support female choreographers, but we have to support them. You can't just give them a show and then have it be over. Like, there has to be a way where it's been done with the men.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is. You guys figure that.
but maybe Pam, what I'm hearing is someone who has lived it,
Right.
who's walked the walk, come in and work with companies and say, listen, this is what I needed. These were the challenges that I faced as a female choreographer, and how can we as directors change that path for the next generation?
Like, if you see potential female dancers in your companies that really are serious, then or even
send them to you.
or or even not serious. How do they know they're serious if they didn't try?
Exactly.
They could try and say that's not for me, or yes, I'm interested. I'll come and talk to people.
I wanted to bring up, I think Lourdes pointed out an irony in that, yes, women inherently have more work to do in ballet because of the point shoe. And yet that means that they have, of course, a deeper knowledge about something that sets ballet apart from other dance forms. I remember oftentimes my female colleagues kind of saying, I wouldn't say complaining, but having to finesse point work transitions because the male choreographers simply don't have that background. So I think everyone will be better off.
Because they're solving choreographic problems for the man, for the male.
Yeah,
True.
Exactly.
Of course.
We can't do that,
So who are some of the females in the dance community today that really inspire you?
Lourdes Lopez.
that is just so not fair. We go way, way back.
We do indeed. I think this is a tremendously exciting time because people are finally going, oh, yeah, they can do that. And so, I think that there are a lot of colleagues that are running companies or creating work that I'm really very, I feel a sense of we're at the front of a wave. I'm not really going to call names because I feel like it is an exceptional time that there is now an opportunity for us to move forward.
Absolutely.
I've never, when I first stepped into the role at Miami City Ballet, everybody said, oh my God, you're like the only, female artistic director in the United States, and you're the first, or you're this, or you're that. And I don't think that way. I just don't. And maybe it's my fault, and maybe I should. I think, I get up every morning and I don't think, well, now I'm a female and I have to. I think, what does Miami City Ballet need? And so it's obviously incredibly important because I think role models are critical in any field, and I think, and I'm for equality, and I'm understanding that, but it's not I don't have gender as a focus necessarily for me.
I sort of was I understand your thought process, because I want to be known as a choreographer, not a female choreographer,
Right, yeah.
but I do, and I think I am. That's how I work. But I think I think now I have to be responsible and say I'm a female choreographer. But I don't know. Yeah. That's it for that.
All right, so we're going to take some time now to talk about the extraordinary evening of dance that happened last night. Were any of you there last night for the show? Wonderful.
Great.
It was really spectacular. So it was a commissioned work by the Kennedy Center, and it was Pam Tanowitz choreographed it, featuring dancers from both of your companies, Dance Theater of Harlem and Miami City Ballet. So how did this collaboration, the idea for the collaboration, come about, and what made all three of you interested in being a part of it? Pam, do you want to
I got an email from Meg Booth.
Former podcast
But
guest.
I don't know what happened before the email. Maybe you guys can. I don't know how.
I think I got an email too. No, I think it's true. I think I got an email from Meg about it was her idea to put a series together that focused on women in the arts, leadership, female leadership in the arts, and she wanted to pair Miami City Ballet with the Dance Theater of Harlem because they were celebrating their 50th anniversary. And this conversation went on for almost more than a year, because there were several programmatic ideas that we were thinking about. And I was all for it, because I mean, like I said, Virginia and I go way, way back, and I love DTH, and even though I'd only met Mr. Mitchell a couple of times, the man was just this major force in the dance world, and certainly what he forged for black dancers here in the United States and around the world. So I just jumped in. I said, count me in. I'll do it.
Absolutely. Very similar, very similar. I came down to the office of our executive director, Anna Glass, and Meg Booth is sitting there, and they're talking about Kennedy Center, and they're talking about Ballet Across America. And I think what happened to me, this program, Ballet Across America, is of course an old program. It's been in existence for a while. And DTH had participated in it before, and often it takes the shape of many different companies coming and doing one work on a program, and then just a kind of a potpourri of dance. But it seemed that Meg was very interested in making something, a deeper statement about ballet in America, and that she was very fascinated about the change that was coming, and that there was a moment to celebrate female leadership. I thought it was just the most brilliant idea to have the week divided between the two companies, and the most amazing idea to have the two companies work together in a commissioned work. Now, brilliant, almost impossible to make happen. It's been quite elaborate to coordinate schedules and to make sure that everything came together in a way that it did last night.
It's sort of crazy.
Yeah,
actually.
because when you think of, DTH is in New York, MCB is in Miami, Pam's traveling all over the world. I think what was so beautiful about this commission, because the scheduling was a challenge, but it was seamless. I have to tell you, for me it was seamless. I think it's because everybody left their ego at the door and said, we're here to kind of make this happen for women in dance, for Kennedy Center, for Ballet Across America, for Pam. Everybody just jumped into the vision. And that's what I felt. And there were roadblocks. I'm not saying that it was easy. There were roadblocks, but we were happy to discuss them, try to overcome them, find a different way. No one got stuck in no, it has to be this way or we can't make it happen. Yeah. And I wonder, is that because we were all women, or was it because we all wanted this to happen and
Both,
we believed?
I do. I mean, the roadblocks were easy roadblocks. They were just like dates and like logistical things. It was never any, like you said, ego or any other bigger issues, or there was nothing else going on. It was really transparent. It was more just like scheduling, really. But once we got it, it was good.
Yeah, but talk about, because you flew down to Miami,
Yeah.
you choreographed, then you
I
flew
did
up,
Yeah,
then we
tell
flew
us
the
the
dancers
logistics.
up to New York, and they flew the dancers down to Miami. I mean,
It was like a lot.
a lot of miles, a lot of American Airlines miles.
Yes, we got a lot. All of us got a lot of miles, so that was good. No, it was. I mean, my schedule was also hard. So I think I started. Well, I started working on it with my dancers because I already knew this was going to be challenging. I was super. I got the email from Meg Booth. I'll go back, and she said, "Would you like to do a piece at the Kennedy Center with Miami City Ballet and Dance Theater Harlem?" So that was a no-brainer, of course. I was so honored that you guys, wanted to work with me. So I didn't even think about how it would actually work. I just said yes. And I mapped out after I chose my music, I mapped out movement with my dancers because I wanted to I was super organized, more than I normally am, because I knew of all the challenges. And yeah, I went up to Dance Theater Harlem a bunch of times. Then I flew to Miami.
And we were on tour, so
And
you
then,
could work with
what was amazing was both times I went to Miami, DTH was in Florida. And then they schlepped to where I was, right? It was a schlep, like 2-hour drives and stuff. But it was worth it. And, and I think it was all, and we started in last fall. I think I came to watch rehearsal last fall,
I
like
think
last
so.
November.
Yes.
Super exciting for me. I mean, it felt like I understand exactly what you were saying, Lourdes, because when we were all in the studio, with all this happening, we were all there working together, collaborating. I'm very collaborative with my dancers, and, we were all present.
Yeah.
And actually, this whole year, this piece, including this piece, actually, I've realized a lot of my work is about people in the room, and this piece particular. I react, and so I come with ideas, but it's not. I'm very open to what's going on in the room. For example, the piece of music. One of the reasons why I chose it. It's beautiful. It's by Caroline Shaw. Inside the piano score is a Chopin waltz. And that's something that I do in my work through the years. I'm very interested in taking historical, references from Balanchine and Cunningham and I embed them in my work. And, it's something I'm very interested in. So I love this piece. And we started rehearsing, and the Chopin waltz came on. And the Miami City Ballet dancers started doing the Jerry Robbins. Yeah. And I went, oh my God, wait, stop, show me that again. So that's an example, and it's in my piece, but I manipulated it. They do tapping, they do all this stuff. So I took the base of the Jerry Robbins, which what is it called?
Other
dances, right? And stole a little bit, manipulated it, made it ours, Did you notice?
Yes.
That's fine too. But I think it's fine too. I think if you knew that or not, and also you would still enjoy it if you didn't know it. So it's not like a secret that is alienating to an audience. So that would be an example of reading the room, being present in the room with the dancers, using their input. Because you should have seen their faces. It was really exciting. So yeah.
Yeah. I was going to talk to you a little bit more about how individual dancers affect your work. Like now, at this point, you are working with companies of so many different varied backgrounds, trainings. The repertoire that they have to perform on a regular basis has completely different demands. So how does that affect you? Do you find it's like a push-pull? Like, are they meeting you halfway too in terms of what your personal aesthetic is?
I think it's interesting to meet halfway. So I again have my certain ideas of what I want to do, but if I'm in the Graham company, I'm saying to myself, okay, they're performing Graham, and so their approach, the movement is a certain way. So how can I work with that, and how can I, it's really when I tell them that they don't need to wear makeup for my piece, and they're like, Pam, we wear false eyelashes. This is grand, performing your dance in false eyelashes. I'm like, really? Okay. But no, I meet them halfway, and with ballet dancers too. I mean, there's certain things that I really wanted, maybe a lot of it has to do with hands and heads, and sometimes I want the head, neutral, and then sometimes I will use the épaulement, and but it's talked about, it's specific, and again, what you were saying about choices as a performer, I always talk about how this is how I want it. It's not better or worse. It's just different. And it's choices, and you take these choices with you to your next piece. It makes the dancer grow. I grow because I learn. I ask them questions all the time because I don't know all the ballet terms. So I'll ask what they are. How do you do it? How could we change the accent? How can we, do the same step with different arms that are like take away the traditional arm and head, and how could we reverse it and invert it, and things like that. So I'm always talking to the dancers, and it's exciting. And I think to acknowledge who I'm making a dance for. So I don't want to take it all out.
Right.
Yeah. But I think it is hard for ballet dancers sometimes with my work because it is similar. It would be, I think sometimes there's if they're doing something totally different, it's easier. I think it's a different part of their thinking. If they're used to doing a certain ballet step with a certain arm, and now I'm asking them to take that out, it's actually harder.
Right.
But they love it.
Yeah.
Because they're using their brain in a different way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think at this point we have to go to the audience for your questions. So if anyone thought of anything during the course of our talk.
And we'll go ahead and repeat each question so that everyone
in the back can hear as well.
Before they answer.
Go ahead.
That's a good question.
So the question was what Pam's mindset is as a choreographer. Does it differ based on whether or not she's making something based on a commission or something that she's personally invested in and working on?
Well, I think they intersect because I always have ideas. I have lists of music I want to use. So when I was asked to do this piece, I had a list. I had two choices. I think I sent 2 choices of music to you guys. I can't remember. I already knew what kind of music I wanted right away. It's best when it's both. I mean, sometimes commissions are assignments, but when they can intersect, like you said, with what I want to be making and where my interests are, that's the best. I can't really think of anything I didn't want to do that I think that would be sad for me. I think that I only, I don't want to, I don't think I could, actually, because I would turn the thing that I was unsure about into the thing that I loved. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So far I haven't made anything that I didn't feel inspired by, because I can create within, and a lot of times limits are inspiring, actually. So if someone, says 4 dancers and this music, sometimes that's actually more inspiring than anything. It's harder. Right. Actually, yeah.
Did that happen? How did you guys choose the four dancers? Decide that it was going to be 2 males, 2 females? That was your choice?
I think that we decided that 4 would be the most manageable and the most interesting to me. So, like 2 would have been not as impactful. Or more than that felt harder to coordinate with the rest of your schedule. Sure. So I think that was all of us, but it was up to me
to
decide who.
Yeah. Very good. Yes, right here.
The question was, as we talked about men being more nurtured as choreographers, is it the same idea for artistic directorship?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think that there's, not that I know of, anything really presently in place, like an apprenticeship where sometimes you have an associate artistic director, but it's not necessarily like an apprenticeship program that you go in and you learn. One thing is interesting to me, and that is if you have a male artistic director, by and large, they tend to choose a male associate artistic director or a male person to follow them. It's very rarely female. And I think that's one of the things that the Miami City Ballet Board did so courageously with me. I mean, truly, truly, like, because this is 2012, so the women's movement had not even started. So they not only chose a female, they chose someone who hadn't been an artistic director. And it was really based on the fact that the board had a real understanding that what made the Miami City Ballet so great, other than its dancers, was really its legacy, the Balanchine legacy, and they stuck to that. They said, we need someone who understands this. So I don't know if I answered your question. I don't know, Virginia, maybe you have a different...
I think it's just that there's more of an expectation that the artistic director is going to be a male, and that there's more conversation. It's a little bit like what you were saying with the men have a different day schedule, and so they have a chance to look at the bigger picture of what's going on around them in the studio or on the stage or in the theater, because they're not every minute getting ready to do one role or another. Mm-hmm. So they have a different perspective on it, and there's that expectation that the artistic director is going to be a male. It's just it's a very traditional art form, and changing that tradition is something that's taking time.
Mm.
Well, it's like Pam talked about earlier, how you felt there's no one really to teach you how to choreograph and make dances. There's no one to really teach you how to be an artistic director. There are people you can refer to, but there's no like program, like you said, Lourdes, to like an apprenticeship program to figure out how to manage all of these things. You spend your whole life working on your art form and dance, and then suddenly you have to manage a huge organization to do budgets, all of these different elements. Yeah.
But you know, what's interesting is I called, when I got the position, I called Nikolai Huba, who's a friend of mine, who's the artistic director at the Royal Danish Ballet, and Peter Bohl. Mm-hmm. So both two men, but there was no one else to call. You know?
Yeah.
Help me.
I think it's also it's interesting that neither one of you had aspirations. But do you think that it's because there wasn't the representation? Like now that you are both leaders in the art form, maybe your dancers will say, "Oh, well, that always felt like a possibility because my director was Lourdes or Virginia." Mm-hmm. Whereas before you have only men, so it doesn't cross your mind, maybe.
Yeah, interesting. Any other questions? Right here.
Well,
So the question was about modern choreographers preserving their legacy, and Pam, have you had thoughts about that?
I just had a meeting at the library with Linda Murray. So yes, I'm thinking about it because she was interested in getting me to start thinking about it sooner than later. But there's two things. So yes, there's like the archival library materials that I just started thinking about. But because I'm project-based and because it's not a full-time company, full-time companies will maybe rehearse a new piece in the morning, have lunch, and rehearse their repertoire. That's not something that happens. So a lot of times the way I keep my repertoire is I steal from myself and I bring it forward. So if there's a movement that is interesting to me that I felt like I haven't really, like in one piece that maybe I was not successful, I feel like didn't work, or I was interested in but didn't go deep enough, I will take those materials, those steps, that movement, and bring it forward and reframe it in a new piece, and then that comes, that usually leads to totally different movement and totally different way of presenting that stuff. So I didn't realize I did that till a couple years ago. That's how I keep my repertoire, is I bring it forward into the net dance I'm making now. So.
Well, unfortunately, we have to end the conversation now and let everyone get off to the theater. But thank you all so much for coming out, and thank you to our wonderful panel of guests.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in this week. If you are new to the podcast, we invite you to click available episodes in your favorite podcast app to explore our catalog of over 140 episodes with some of the most influential people in the ballet and dance world. If you like what you heard today, please click subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, and tell your friends. New episodes of Conversations on Dance go live every Monday. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week.